Hello everybody and welcome back to another Overwatch League Season 2 fan thoughts and analysis video. Today we'll be talking about the number 5 team during the regular season and the Season 1 champions, the London Spitfire. An interesting team to talk about, I feel. Definitely one of the more unique teams, I guess. Very, very interesting off-season for them. Very interesting season for them during Season 1. They really kind of sailed off of their success from Stages 1 and 2. Stages 3 and 4, they were okay, but, they had such great first two stages that they basically just kind of sailed off that, and then, lost first game of the playoffs, and then just rolled over the rest of their competition. So let's talk about this team. I haven't recorded one of these videos in over a week. I've missed making these videos. I really like these, so let's get right back into it. So the London Spitfire, obviously very interesting first season. Of the players that they started with last season, a lot of them are gone. Fissure, of course, they had gotten rid of after the first stage, along with Rascal. Then you had Hureg, Wuhyal, Hagopen, and Tizzy, who all got put on the inactive roster, and then they were just straight up removed. And then Closer, who during this offseason was sent to the Dallas Fuel. They won the championship with only 7 players on their roster. The only place where they had an additional player was in that main support role, which is where we see the change with Closer now not on the team anymore. So 6 of the 7 players from the championship team remain. And seeing as the player number has to be 8 by tomorrow, this team does have those 8 players, and I think it's going to be an interesting look for these 8 players. So let's start, and we'll start with their DPS play. So the London Spitfire, of course, have one of the all-star players from Season 1 of the Overwatch League. They have Prophet. If you were to ask me to give my MVP candidates, Prophet would be my number 4, just behind Carpe. I'd put Jonak and Fissure 1, 2, and then I'd have Carpe, and then I'd have Prophet. I think Prophet was a fantastic player. He was the most consistent, even through the struggles this team had. When they were struggling a bit, he was the player that really, really carried them through some of those games. Very, very good player. Very diverse hero pool, right? You're looking at Tracer, you're looking at Junkrat, Brigitte, Hanzo, plays a little bit of Pharah, I believe. He can play some Genji. I mean, he can play like any DPS hero. He's phenomenal. He's fantastic. And I think you have to really, really, really see Prophet as the leader of this team. This team doesn't have a team captain, but if it did, I would think it would be Prophet. Maybe not. Maybe Prophet's not like the leader, but he is very, very big, and he's very important to this team. This team does well when Prophet is playing well. If Prophet's not playing well, this team guaranteed is not going to play well. The other DPS players can struggle at times, but if Prophet's not playing well, this team is not going to do anything. Prophet's partner in crime is Birdring, who is a very interesting player, and I would say a very problematic player at times. He struggled at times throughout the season to keep consistent. He was not a very consistent player, really, ever. It was kind of noticeable, especially late in the season. He was their Widowmaker player, and he struggled at times late in the season. I think he had an injury, a couple, at least in like one of those instances where he struggled. But Birdring, by the time playoffs came around, no rust, played very well. He's a very interesting player. He can perform at that high level. He just has to be playing well. And if he's not playing super well, well, then we saw some issues where London struggled. But I don't doubt this team anymore. I doubted them going into the Season 2 playoffs, and they won the whole thing. So there's no more doubt from me. Right, Birdring's a fantastic player. He has that ability. Yes, he struggles sometimes. Every player struggles sometimes. Birdring maybe a little bit more than others. Maybe he has, much higher highs and much lower lows than some of these other pro players do. But Birdring is a very good player. He's a very solid player, and he is going to be a big part of this team. He is going to be that player that they need on that Widowmaker, because he's really the only person they have. They do have a third DPS player. They did sign a DPS player, and that would be Guard, who comes from Element Mystic, a Contender South Korea team that lost to Runaway in Contenders Season 2 Korea for 2018 in the semifinals. So he's coming from a team that had a decent amount of success. I took a look at Element Mystic just to see if there was anybody on that team that has made their way to the Overwatch League, specifically to see if anybody was on the London Spitfire other than Guard, but it's just Guard on the London Spitfire. But they do have 3 other players who have joined for this season of the Overwatch League. You have 1 on Seoul Dynasty and then 2 on the Atlanta Reign. The Seoul Dynasty players Jesse or Jexy, and the 2 Atlanta Reign players are Dako and Pakpo. So it'll be interesting to see, how those players play. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fun squad to watch. With the way with the way that the London Spitfire performed late in the season, I was really impressed. They were one of the teams that I thought really, really, really performed well when I think people had kind of counted them out. I remember people saying you don't want to play London in the playoffs, and I was like, I don't know. They haven't been playing very well, but they got their act together. They came up big. Guard, you add him to this DPS core, which is already pretty good. Prophet, one of the best players in the league. Birdring has that high skill ceiling and can be very good. Guard, from what I can tell, doesn't have the most diverse hero pool, right? He's going to be playing that Tracer, that Sombra. Maybe they brought him in a lot for that Sombra, because Sombra is relatively more important this season, potentially. Not like Stage 2 important from Season 1, but somewhat important. And, but Tracer, if you need a Tracer, you're going to run Prophet every time, because Prophet's a very good Tracer. So it'll be interesting to see how Guard fits with this roster. I don't expect him to play a lot. I don't think that the 2 signings that London made were for play, really. I think a lot of it was, we have to have 8 players under contract. We don't need to go trying to sign, some of these all-stars or be very competitive. We just need to sign a couple players that can add something to this team that we don't have, and that's really it. And I think that's what the signing of Guard was, and I think that's what Guard will be. Just kind of he's here because we needed a player. That's genuine that I expect. But we're going to move into that flex tank role, where we have Fury. Fury, consistent player, played very well in the season. I was impressed by the way he played, quite honestly. Shout out to him. He was the guy who got the kill with Torbjorn's hammer in the All-Star weekend. So I think it was specifically the All-Star game. Yeah, second day of All-Star weekend. So Fury, he's gonna be that diva. Obviously, there's no backup, right? So you just kind of have to look at this team at face value in a lot of these positions. And that's really what you have with Fury, right? Fury is going to be week in, week out, every match the Diva player, right? Or the Zarya player, or the Roadhog player, right? Whatever you need out of him, he's going to have to be because you don't have other options. But Fury's good. He was on the World Cup team. He's a very good player. He's a very consistent player, in my opinion. He was one of those players on the London roster that I felt performed well consistently. A lot of the time your off tank goes unnoticed in a way, right? Their good play isn't as noted, or their good play isn't as kind of in your face as if you had like a great Zenyatta playing, or if you had a great DPS match. But you look at Fury. He's a fantastic player. He does what he needs to do, and there's really nothing you can put against this guy. He performs when he needs to. He comes out. He does everything that he needs to do in order to win. He helped this team a lot. I think he is one of the big reasons why this team won, because he had great play, and then also I believe that a lot of it also came down to their main tank, who we'll get to here in a second. But I thought Fury was a great player. I think he might be one of the top 3 South Korean off tanks, if not number 2, number 1. I think it's between him and Meko. He could be slightly better than Meko, and Meko might be slightly better than him, but I think he's a top 2 Korean diva player, even potentially a top 2 diva player in general. He's that good. So he's going to be a big part of this team. He already was a big part of this team. He's going to continue to be a big part of this team. But let's move on to the main tank role, where we have Gesture, who also impressed me a decent amount. He was a player that I thought looked good, especially late in the season. I feel like he went unnoticed for a little bit. Obviously, like, you gotta understand something, right? If Fissure was on the London Spitfire roster and they released him, that means there has to be somebody on the roster that they felt more confident in. Well, that would happen to be Gesture. They felt more confident in Gesture, and Gesture played very well late in the season, especially, and I think he played well throughout the season, but definitely late in the season is when I started to notice how well he had started to play. So, he's a good player, right? It's that simple. You just kind of can see when a player performs well, and Gesture just did. That was just kind of Gesture's thing, and I think that he was one of the reasons why this team kept finding its success. This team, in a way, was inconsistent, but I think a lot of it ultimately, and this sounds bad, I think a lot of it ultimately fell on Birdring's shoulders. He wasn't playing up to his best. They didn't have a head coach, so you just kind of were just running into these matches with no strategy, and these teams you're facing have been planning for months, potentially, for the same kind of like strategy, right? Maybe they played you back in stage 2 and it's now stage 4, and they're like, we need to beat London this time, so they're devising a strategy to beat them, or they've been spending a whole week devising a strategy just to beat London, and London doesn't really have that in stage 1. They have a head coach now, in coach, or who it's coach 451, coach 815. I knew it was some number. Who there's an entire video on how he's actually a very, very good head coach, and he offers a lot of things for this team, and he's got history. He used to coach. Sorry about that. He used to coach for MVP Space, and you look at kind of like where they finished a lot, and you're like, they didn't finish in a lot of great places, but they pretty much always lost to Runaway, right? So, what are you gonna do? But I think this team kind of performed well. They just couldn't really figure things out. So now you have a team that now has a head coach, again, who likely will help this team out a bunch. this is a scary London Spitfire roster with players who have a strategy now. This is going to be a fun team to watch. But next we have the support players. We have first their off support, or their flex support, whatever you want to call it. We have Badoshin on the Zenyatta. He is another impressive player. I've talked about him several times when I'm kind of talking about the best Zenyatas in the league. Badoshin is one of the names I always mention. He is more of that offensive style of Zenyatta, similar to Jay Jonak, who of course we'll talk about in a couple weeks. But Badoshin is another one of those players that is consistent. He plays Zenyatta in a style that I think is more typical of an Eastern Zenyatta, South Korean Zenyatta specifically. Those South Korean Zenyatas are a lot more offensive, a lot more aggressive compared to the Western Zenyatta, who I think typically do a little bit more support work. Maybe I'm just generalizing because it's really just Badoshin and Jonak that do that, but they are a very impressive team, with Badoshin playing well. And he I think is much like Birdring. I think when Badoshin plays well, you see some improved overall team performance. But now Badoshin has someone to compete with, and that is the other new signing that this team had, which is Krillin. Krillin comes from the open trials. So he's not even coming from a team. He has no experience on any real team, but he impressed London Spitfire enough for them to sign him. He's going to be a very interesting player to watch, and see kind of what happens. Like I said, I don't expect him, much like I don't expect I don't expect Guard to be a huge part of this team. I don't expect Krillin to be a huge part of this team, especially not early on. Maybe later on he could be somewhat of a more important player. Maybe he does get some more playtime, but I expect Badoshin to play more. But Krillin could definitely be a player on this team who gets a good amount of playtime, especially later on. But I expect early on we'll still be seeing mostly Badoshin, and I think there's reason for that. He's a good player. He's performed well. I don't expect him to get replaced by Krillin. I really don't expect him to get replaced by Krillin permanently, but who knows? Maybe Krillin's that good, and he puts on a show. Who knows? But that's it for their flex support role. I'm excited to see what they play like. But finally, we have their main support, and that is Nuss. You had Nuss and Closer going into the playoffs. Nuss ultimately won the spot, and is still with the team, while Closer is now at the Dallas Fuel. So Nuss, this is a team where I don't think they have that kind of game-changing mercy, or one of those really notable mercies. And it's kind of the only role where I feel London is that way, right? I think you look at their roster, right? DPS, you got Prophet, who's one of the best players in the league. You have Birdring, who's notable because when he plays well, he's one of the best, in my opinion. You have Fury and Gesture on your flex tank and main tank. Both players are some of the tops in their role. Badoshin is one of the top Zenyatas, and then you have Nuss, who's a good player, obviously, and a very, very, very good Mercy, but I don't think he is one of those top Mercies, right? When you think of Mercy players, the first ones you probably think of are Neptuno, Arc. Those are, I think, two of the bigger ones. Are probably two of the ones you think of first. I'm sure some people think of Big Goose, Custa. I don't even know how it took me that long to think of Custa. Like Nuss is not going to be your first thought when you're thinking of a Mercy player and a support player, but he's a good enough player, right? That's all you need with a Mercy sometimes. Does he do his job correctly? Okay. Does he heal the way that a star healer or an Overwatch League healer should? Yeah. Okay. Then that's all we really need out of us. So I think he's the only main support that they have So unless Krillin also plays some Mercy or flexes off of, or is kind of like trained to be more of a Mercy player, more of a Moira Zenyatta, or more like a Moira Lucio instead of a Zenyatta Ana player. Maybe it'd be interesting to see, but Nuss is Nuss, and I think that this team, they don't really have a weakness, which is a very big thing about this team. Their weakness, I guess, could be a lack of depth. They don't have a deep roster, right? They only have 2 additional players, neither of which I really see playing all that much, because they are players on spots where I don't think London needs any kind of help. So I'll be interested to see what London does this season. Obviously, they're the defending champions. They have a title to defend. I expect they will go all out this season like they did last season. But I think that there's no doubting this team anymore. I really think that this team is one of the best teams, if not the best team in the Overwatch League that they proved last season. And I think they could be one of the top teams again. I think this roster is still the same with, they got rid of 1 player, gained 2 players. They didn't really lose much by losing Closer. Not saying Closer's not a good player, but, you still have Nuss. So you're not losing, if you just say New York lost Arc, that'd be a significant loss. Anamo's a good support player, but Arc is Arc, and he's just very good at what he does. He's very notable. While Anamo, not so much, and maybe they suffer a little bit, but overall, with London, there's no real loss here. But there are gains with 2 young players who could very well make a difference and provide a lot of help for this roster in the future. We don't know. They could be the replacements. They could be the future. We don't know yet, but I look at this London Spitfire roster, and I still see a very solid team, a team that definitely has a chance at the grand finals again, definitely has a chance at all of the stage finals. I think London will be New York for next season, right? They'll be the dominant team for the entire season. They'll get all the wins, and they'll be the team that people are most impressed by. And that's just the way I feel about this team and the way it's built. But what do I know? I'm just a fan who thinks he knows some stuff about this game when really, I don't know. But that's everything I got for you with London. Great team. They're the defending champions. What more can you really say about them? They're gonna perform well no matter what. I guess not no matter what, but I expect them to still be a very good team. I think we will be seeing a lot of London late in the season this season, and I'm excited to see how they defend their title. But that will do it here. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing. Comment down below what you think about the London Spitfire Season 2 roster. But I will see you all in the next video. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. And I will see you all next time.